beginning the book of Kedusha, the book of holiness, the 5th book of the Rambam, right? What does holiness mean, right? One of our parshas in the Torah is called Kedoshim Tiyu. You shall be holy. What does it mean to be holy, right? Someone was asking Noah Weinberg a question. He says, Rabbi, they called this land the Holy Land, right? I didn't say anything holy in the Holy Land. I traveled all over the country. I've been to the north, the south. I didn't say anything holy. Do you say anything holy in the Holy Land? So Noah asked him and said, well, you traveled all over the country. Maybe you saw any bafuf sticks? Bafuf sticks? What's bafuf sticks? I didn't ask you what it is. I asked you if you saw any or not. Well, how do I know if I saw any if I don't know what it is, right? Maybe I saw it, I didn't know what it is, right? Do you know what holy is, right? If you don't know what holy is, how do you know if you saw anything holy or not, right? What do you expect to see? Multicolored angels floating in the air? Right? So in a Siddur, we find the definition. The Siddur we say Saturday night, we say, Hamavdil ben Kodesh l'chol, ben Or l'choshech, ben Yisrael l'amim, ben Yom HaShvi l'sheshet me'amaseh. Hashem separates between holy and profane, light and darkness, Shabbat and the rest of the week, and Israel and the nations of the world. Light and darkness, we understand. Turn the light on, it's light. Turn the light off, it's dark. What if somebody says, you know what? I'm going to close my eyes. I want you to turn the light on and off. I want to hear the difference between light and darkness. I want to smell the difference. I want to taste the difference. I want to feel the difference. Can you do it? No, you have your perception in your eyes. Either open up your eyes or forget it. Same thing when it comes to holy. You can't see holy. Can't smell holy, can't taste holy, right? Where do you perceive holy? In your neshama, right? But what if you don't use a muscle for a long time? What happens to it? It gets flabby or it gets rigid, right? If you're in a dark room for a long time, when you see light, it blinds you, right? If you haven't used your perception of holiness in a long time, it gets rusty, right? You ever hear people who come to the kotel the first time in their lives, I felt a strange feeling I could not identify. People say that very often, right? What's that strange feeling? The feeling holy. You haven't experienced holy in such a long time, you can't identify it, right? I'm sure if they took the Chavetz Chaim and put him in a sealed box and brought him to the kotel, he'd feel it right. He'd feel it, right? Holy means close to Hashem. Right? The Torah says in Parshas Vayikra, in the book of Vayikra, Kedoshim Tiyu, you shall be holy because I am holy. When I first came to Israel 30 years ago, someone asked me a question. Rabbi, why do we need all these mitzvahs? Isn't it good enough to be a good person? I'm a good person. I once had an Englishman in my class, and he said to me once, Rabbi, I don't know anything about religion, but it seems to me that religion is all about being a giving person. I said, I don't know anything about astronomy, but it seems to me astronomy is all about twinkle, twinkle, little star. He cracked up. If you don't know anything about it, don't talk about it. Anyway, isn't it good enough to be a good person? I'm a nice guy. I don't cheat on my income tax. I don't cheat on my wife, right? I don't speak Lashon Hara. Can you be a good person without keeping Shabbos? Sure. Without keeping kosher? Sure. So why do you need all these mitzvahs? Isn't it good enough to be a good person? That was the question they asked me. So I thought about it. Good question, right? Because what's a good person? Hitler thought he was a good person too, right? Yeah, you have to define what good is. But even if we could agree on what good is, right? The answer is you're right. It's good enough to be a good person if you're not Jewish. If you're not Jewish, right? We are the most liberal religion in the world. Did you know that? We are the only religion in the world that promises heaven to non-members. Every other religion, you got to be a member. You got to be a Protestant, you got to be a Catholic, you got to be a Mormon, you got to be a witness, a Muslim or a Buddhist or a Hindu, and you'll hear the music playing and hear the drums beating, and you'll see the light, and you go to heaven guaranteed, or your money back. All right? But if a non-Jew comes to convert to Judaism, we tell him it's not necessary. Keep the 7 laws of Noah, which is basic morality, and you go to heaven. We promise heaven to non-members. You don't have to be Jewish, right? If you want to have the highest heaven, there's a difference between 7 and 613, of course, right? You can join us. Open admissions. We cannot refuse a convert. Do you know that? As long as we're convinced they're sincere. Now, the truth of the matter is we give converts a very hard time. Maybe they just want to marry a Jewish boy or marry a Jewish girl. But once we're convinced this non-Jew sincerely wants to keep the Torah, will keep the mitzvahs, we must accept them. They can be black, red, yellow, makes no difference. Right? So, it's true. It's good enough to be a good person if you're not Jewish, right? But if you're Jewish, the answer is no. It's not good enough to be a good person. You have to be holy. Hashem says, you shall be holy because I am holy. How do you be holy? That's why you need the Torah. That's why you need the mitzvahs, right? And the Ramban says that when the Torah says you should be holy, it's giving them giving us a measuring stick. Even though the Torah doesn't tell us specifically every little thing was wrong, ask yourself a question: is that called being holy? Right? Ramban says a fascinating thing. He says it's possible for a person to be nivul b'rshus Torah, live a decadent life within permission of the Torah, without breaking any laws of the Torah. From Torah law, you can have as many wives as you want. You know that? King is limited to 16, right? If you're not king, it's many as you want, right? He has 10 wives. Spends all day long with his wives. There's no prohibition in the Torah getting drunk. Drink kosher wine all day long, get drunk. Eat kosher meat all day long, and you didn't break any prohibition in the Torah, right? So where did the Torah say you shouldn't do that? It says, Rabban, kedoshim to you. You shall be holy because I am holy. So if you want to know, should I do this act or not, between man and God, ask yourself one question. Is that called being holy or not? Right, how about man and your fellow man? So in last week's Torah portion, Parsha says, Chana, we had a verse, you shall do what is just and right. Tov v'yashar b'nei Hashem, in the eyes of God. And the rabbis say that includes bar mitzvah. I want to sell my field, and two people want to buy it. One of them happens to have a field right next to mine. If he buys my field, he can plow them together and plant them together. The other one doesn't. How do you know you're required to sell it to that guy, the one who has the field next to yours? He says you should do what is just and good in the eyes of God. Says Rabban, that's the measuring stick for between man and your fellow man. If I don't know what to do in this case, is it man and your fellow man? Ask yourself, is this just and right in the eyes of God? Between man and God, is it holy? All right. But the Rambam defines holiness, two areas of life comes under holiness: sex and food. Right? The way you live your sexual life and the way you eat, that's holiness, and the opposite. So the book of holiness starts off with the forbidden relationships, right? Forbidden relationships, right? You know, Hashem wants us to control ourselves, right? So the first thing is the family, your direct family, right? Your mother, your father's wife, right? Your father's wife's daughter, right? Your son's daughter, your daughter, your own daughter, right? Your daughter's daughter. Of course, a woman and a daughter. When you have one wife, you can't have a woman and a daughter. A woman and her son's daughter, daughter's daughter, father's sister, mother's sister, father and brother's wife, son's wife, father's wife. These are all wife's sister. These are all sister-in-law and brother-in-law and granddaughter. Here we come to having relations with animals. That's both male and female, right? Homosexual relations forbidden, right? It's considered an abomination, right. Adultery with a married woman, right? Now we come to the laws of Nida. Even your own wife, it's forbidden to have a relationship with a woman when she's having her menstrual period, right? You should know that this is one of the reasons why Orthodox Jews have one of the smallest divorce rates in the world. You know that? In America, the divorce rate is over 50%, over 60% rate, right? And it doesn't mean the other 40% are happily married. They just don't feel like getting divorced, right? Jews among Jews, last statistic I heard was 30%. It's probably more by now, I'm sure, right? In general. Orthodox Jews, I think it's still less than 10%, right? We must be doing something right, of course. It's going up, right? Because we are influenced by our environment. And we live in a throwaway society, right? What does a shoemaker tell you? We take a shoe to fix today. Don't pay to fix it, right? Don't pay to fix it, right? That's how people look at their marriages. Don't pay to fix it. Too much trouble, right? Get divorced, right? But one of the reasons why Orthodox Jews have such a small divorce rate, it's not the only reason, but one of the reasons, right, is because we have a built-in, in our marriage, we have a built-in shield that protects us, preservative of our marriage, and that is the laws of Nida. When the woman has her menstrual period, right? And for approximately a week after that, it usually takes 5 days approximately, right? Husband and wife are forbidden to have any physical contact. They can't hold hands. They can't touch each other. They sleep in the same room but in separate beds, right? They can't empathic see each other, right? They can't sit down next to each other. It's a period of approximately 2 weeks every month, right? So what is the toelis? What do you gain from this? Well, one of the biggest problems in the secular world is sex gets boring, right? You like ice cream, David? You like ice cream, right? Have some ice cream. Have some more ice cream. Have some more ice cream. Enough ice cream. You can feel it. Jewish couples, right? 2 weeks every month, husband and wife are forced to live we call it a brother-sister relationship, right? They're not in separate houses. They're living in the same house. They're bringing up children. They're running the household together, right? But they have to communicate verbally, right? You know? And then at the end of so in other words, he has to relate to his wife as a person. For 2 weeks every month, the husband relates to his wife as a person. And then comes the night when she goes to the mikveh. When she goes to the mikveh, that night's supposed to be a secret. No one's supposed to know. No one's supposed to know. All right? I know a lady, the night she was supposed to go to a mikveh, her in-laws arrived from America. So what did she do? She got all dressed up, and she said, I'm going to a wedding. She did go to a wedding. Whose wedding? Her wedding, right? Because you have a honeymoon every month, right? And you look forward to it. It's always special. And then for 2 weeks every month, he relates to his wife as a woman, all right? That's the best time to get pregnant, by the way, right? Jewish couples that don't want to take birth control, if they have enough kids right there, they don't have another kid right away, they just push off the night of the mikveh 2 or 3 days, and the less chances of getting pregnant. It's not foolproof, but less chance of getting pregnant. Anyway, so this is a tremendous purpose, toilets, tremendous. You know, you ever hear of couples who are married 20 or 30 years and they get divorced? They say, we fell out of love. There was nothing left, right? There was nothing there in the first place, right? Except the physical attraction. 20 years later, she's not so pretty, secretary's not pretty, right? No, he doesn't have such a sex, there's nothing left, right? By keeping the marriage laws, right, husband and wife have a real relationship. You have to communicate, right? And that remains even later in life. That's what's so important about it. So having relations with a menstrual impure woman is having soul cut off. Not to intermarry with Gentiles, right? Ammonite and Moabite wives, 3rd generation, we're going to the Edomites. Then we come to mamzer, right? Who's a mamzer? You know, in English we call it a bastard. It's interesting that our definition of bastard is much less severe than the secular world. The secular world, any child born out of wedlock is called a bastard, right? That's not our definition. If a Jewish man and woman, right, have a baby out of wedlock, right? It's not the best lineage, right? But it's not a mamzer. A mamzer is only a child born from a relationship that would have been either death penalty or soul cut off, which means basically adultery and incest, right? Incest, a mother and a brother and a son, a father and a daughter, a brother and a sister, or more common is a married woman, right? So a child that's born from a forbidden relationship, right, incest or adultery, right? The child is called a mamzer. Severely limited who he may marry. So everybody asks the question, it's not fair, right? Why are we punishing this poor child for his mother's mistakes? He didn't do anything wrong, it's not his fault, right? So first of all, I'd like to point out that marriage prohibitions in Judaism are not necessarily punishments. For example, a Kohen, right? Anyone a Kohen here? A Kohen cannot marry a divorcee, right? The high priest, we don't have today, he could not even marry a widow, right? You have a Kohen, he's in love with a beautiful divorcee, can't marry her, right? Is there a punishment here? Did he do anything wrong? There's no punishment here. He didn't do anything wrong. So how do we understand it? There's degrees of holiness. Just so we understand the land of Israel is more holy than the diaspora. And the city of Jerusalem is more holy. And the Temple Mount is more holy. And the Holy of Holies is more. There's degrees of Kedusha, holiness, right? So a Jew has a certain degree of holiness. Levi has a higher level. Kohen has a higher level. Kohen goes to high priest has a higher level. And the Mamzer has a lower level. This is only relevant in one area of life. Marriage. What's the word for marriage in Hebrew? Kiddushin. Holiness. Even in English, you hear the expression holy matrimony. We say in English, holy matrimony, right? In the area of marriage, there's a limitation if you're a higher level or a low level, right? But does this mean that the mamzer, right, is a less Jew than any other Jew, right? Not necessarily, right. In fact, we find that the Mishnah says it's a mitzvah to redeem captives, right? If Goyim capture Jews, it's a mitzvah to redeem them unless they ask for an exorbitant amount of money, right? If they ask too much money, then you're not supposed to redeem them. That will just encourage them to do it again, right? The Israelis, for one Israeli dead body or soldier, they give 100 terrorists who come back and do terror afterwards, right? The Halacha would never allow that, right? One great rabbi, I forgot who it was, the Taz, I think, or the Tour, I forgot who it was, who was captured, and he would not allow them to ransom because they wanted too much money, right? But if it's not an exorbitant amount, it's a mitzvah. But what if you don't have enough to ransom all of the captives? What's the priorities? The Mishnah says priorities. Kohen comes first, Levi comes first, Yisrael comes next, and then comes Mamzer. But what if one of the captives was a Torah scholar, and the other one was an ignoramus, right? Who do you arrest first? The Torah scholar, right. This was a big issue during the Holocaust, when they were able to, save some great rabbis, right? And there was a big controversy. Why save these rabbis when you can save many more regular people, right? Now, the truth of the matter is that these handful of great Torah sages that survived the Holocaust, they were the ones who single-handedly rebuilt Torah. The great Torah institutions we see today in America and Israel and Europe, right? You can count them on your fingers. The Satmar Rebbe, the Klosterberger Rebbe, the Bobova Rebbe, Rav Aaron Kotler, right? From Telz, Rabbi Blach, I think his name. Who else? The handful of Torah scholars who survived the Holocaust, they were driven men, right? They felt they had a mission to do, right? And they were the ones who rebuilt Torah, right? So then the Mishnah has a question. What happens if you have two captives in front of you? One of them is the high priest of Israel, the Kohen Gadol, but he's an ignoramus, yeah? And the other one is a mamzer, but he's a Torah scholar, right? Who do you redeem first? What do you say? All right, but many people would say the high priest, right? No, the rabbis say the mamzer, who's a Talmud Chacham, Torah scholar, comes before the high priest, who's a So what do you see from here? The fact that he's a mamzer doesn't make him any less of a Jew, right? We respect him. He's a Jew like every other Jew, right? He's got to keep all the mitzvahs, and we redeem him before the high priest, right? It's just a handicap, right? The question was, it's not fair. Oh, you're right, it's not fair, but all's fair in love and war, right? What would you say about a pregnant woman that took drugs or drank alcohol? It caused her child to be born with a birth defect. Is that fair, right? It's not his fault. He should suffer for his mother's mistakes, right? It's a reality, right? When a pregnant woman takes drugs, say it wasn't her fault. Say someone forced her to take drugs. Say she didn't know it was drugs, right? It's not a question of guilt. The child is born with a birth defect. That's a physical reality. When a married woman commits adultery, right? It goes against the spiritual reality called marriage, right? And the child is born with a spiritual birth defect. So mamzer is a spiritual birth defect. I talked about that in my class on spiritual realities. Okay. Then we have someone who's a eunuch, someone who cannot have relations, cannot have sexual relations, can't get married, right? The main purpose of the grease that keeps the relationship going is the sex, right? Without that, you can't do it, right? We're not allowed to castrate any meal, including animals, right? Then we have the laws of a Kohen Gadol, cannot marry a widow. Kohen married divorcee, zona, halala, child from that. And our favorite one, what's our favorite one? Do not make pleasurable physical contact with any forbidden woman. There's a prohibition of the tikarvu, all these, anything that can come to forbidden relations, right? Holding hands and dancing and all these physical contact is forbidden. Now, if it's not in a romantic context, right? A lady doctor takes your blood pressure, right? A lady dentist drills your tooth. That's okay. Giving change to a lady, that's okay, right? As long as it's not with a romantic context, right? Interestingly enough, by a married couple, it's not like that. A married couple, any physical contact when she's forbidden is forbidden, even if it's not in a romantic context. Why? Because a married couple can very easily come to a romantic relationship, right? Whereas a woman that's not your wife is different, right?
Is this a deraita?
It says lo yekaravu, right? It's in the book of Leviticus, chapter 18, verse 6, right? You should not come close to revealed nakedness, right? You have to stay a distance. You can't do any act which can bring you to that, right? It's in the Torah. All right, so we said, what's holiness, right? Holiness is two areas of life, sex and food, right? And the opposite. Now we come to food, right? You are what you eat. People have a very hard time with dietary laws, right? What difference does it make to God what I put in my stomach? He has something better to worry about than what I put in my stomach, right? But you are what you eat. They don't even understand exactly how metabolism works. The food that you eat gets absorbed in your body, right? And it becomes part of your body, right? It's you, right? That's you. You are what you eat, right? So Hashem says, eat this animal. Do not eat this animal. It will cause you to be animal-like, right? I don't understand, right? But when the doctor gives you a prescription, do you understand, right? Doctor, you better take this pill, you're going to die. Well, let me go first to medical school, find out how it works, then I'll take it, right? You'll die by then, right? If you trust the doctor, I'm not saying you should, but if you do, any doctors here? If you trust the doctor, then you take the medicine, right? Not Nishma. First we'll do, and then we'll try our best to understand, right? So the Torah starts off with the signs of animals, right? We have kosher animals, and the sign to distinguish between a kosher animal and not a kosher animal, the Torah says, is split hoofs and shoes is cut, right? That is a sign of a kosher animal, right? That's not what makes it kosher, right? That's just how you know it's kosher, right? It's not kosher because it has split hoofs. Split hoofs and shoes is cut is a sign that it's a kosher animal. It's kosher because God said it's kosher, right? In any case, here we have one of the most strongest evidences of the divinity of the Torah that a person could have written this book. All right? Once the Torah tells me that it has to have two identifying signs, split hoof and shoes of God, I understand on my own that if it only has one, it's no good, right? Yet the Torah goes out of its way in two places, both in Leviticus and in Deuteronomy, to tell me there are three animals that chew their cud and do not have split hoofs. One of them is the camel, right? Camels always chew their cud. And there's one animal that has split hoofs and does not chew its cud. Which one? The pig. All right? Now, if you're telling me a list, tell me all of them, right? He's telling me one. Tell me one. Why three and one? It seems, I'm not sure about the three. Maybe there's more. But the one, that's the only one. The only animal the Torah says that has split hoofs that chew its cud is a pig. That's the only one. And the Talmud asks the question, was Moshe a trapper? Was he a biologist? How do you know, all right? How can he know? What does this mean? Imagine you come to a foreign country and you see an animal you never saw before in your life. A European comes to America 200 years ago, sees a buffalo. They didn't have buffaloes in Europe, right? Now, buffalo is kosher. It's related to the cow, right? It's split hoofs, it's God, right? You see this animal you never saw before in your life. You see it has split hoofs. That's obvious, right? You don't know if it chews its cut. Say its mouth is cut away. For whatever reason, you cannot tell if it chews its cut. You want to slaughter it and eat it. Are you allowed to or not? What do you say? You see an animal you never saw before in your life. You see it has split hoofs. You don't know if it chews cut. May you slaughter it and eat it? It depends, right? What does it depend on? If you never saw a pig in your life, if you do not know what a pig looks like, right? And you see this animal, you may not slaughter it. Maybe it's a pig, right? But if you know what a pig looks like, you see this buffalo, I don't know what it is, but it's not a pig, right? In that case, you may slaughter it and eat it, because the Torah testifies there is no other animal on planet Earth that has split hoofs and does not chew its cud except for the pig. How could any human being know that? Right? When was the Torah written? At least 1,000 years ago. How many new species have they discovered since then? Right? You know, during the heyday of Bible criticism, they were criticizing the Bible. They were aware of this proof. They decided they're going to disprove it. They made an expedition to travel all over the world to find another animal with split hoofs that doesn't chew its cud. Right? They went to Australia, to New Zealand. They found very funny-looking animals: a kangaroo and a koala bear and a duck-billed platypus. Right? And they didn't find any other animal that split hoofs doesn't chew its cud except for the pig. That's God's fingerprints, right? Now we come to fish, right? What's identifying sign in fish? It has to have fins and scales. And the Mishnah, which is 2,000 years old, says all fish with scales have fins. There are many fish that have fins that don't have scales, right? Sharks have fins, don't have scales, right? Swordfish, right? The conservative movement many years ago wanted to permit swordfish. It's microscopic scales. That's not good enough, right? Now, how many species of fish have they discovered in the last 2,000 years, right? How can anybody know? And just to bring this point out, I'll tell you a story, because you look like you're in the mood for a story, right? I'm in the mood for telling one, right? They discovered a new species of fish in France 200 years ago. It wasn't a question of kosher. They weren't Jewish. The question was if it's edible. They were afraid it might be poisonous. Nobody wanted to try it out. Okay, so they fed it to a dog. Maybe a dog can eat it, a person can't. They decided they're going to make experiments on this fish, all the biologists and scientists and doctors, and they're going to discover if it's edible or not. The rabbi at the time was a smart man. He said, Rabbi, what do you say about this fish? He says, I took one look at it. He says, it's 100% edible. I'll eat it myself. How do you know, Rabbi? We just discovered. How do you know? How do you know? Tell me, how do you know? It had fins and scales, right? And the Torah says, a fish with fins and scales you shall eat. The Torah is not going to tell you to eat a poisonous fish. And the fact is, there are no fish with scales that do not have fins. There are no fish that do not have fins that are poisonous. There are no animals that chew their cud and do not split their except for the camel, except for the pig, right? That's God's evidence, right? By the way, the Talmud asks the question, if all fish with scales have fins, Why did the Torah say skins and scales? Scales and fins. Should just say scales. Right? All you have to say is scales. I got scales, fins, and scales. Right? So the Gemara answers that the word the Torah uses for scales, one might make a mistake and think it means fins. And then they'll say, all fish with fins are kosher, which is not true. Therefore, he said, both tell me that's fins and not scales. Okay. How about birds? The Torah does not identify the sign of birds. It gives a list of all the non-kosher birds. Since there are more kosher birds than non-kosher birds, right? And anyone not on that list is kosher, right? The only problem is, and basically the list are birds of prey. We're dealing with birds of prey. We're dealing with eagles and sparrows and what else? Owls. What are they called? What are they called? Storks, right? What's a stork? Another name for it? What? Pelicans, right? What else? Bats, right? We know many of them, but we don't know all of them. Since we do not all know all of them, so therefore the halacha is that you may not eat a bird unless you have a tradition that Jews ate this bird in the past. So we all know Jews eat chicken soup. It's a very famous Jewish food, right? How about turkeys? Turkey was an American bird. They didn't have turkeys in Europe, right? Some want to say that the American Indians might be the 10 lost tribes, right? Therefore they ate turkeys, right? I don't know. All right. They say there was a bird in Europe that was similar to a fowl. Some people eat it, some people don't. I don't know if anyone doesn't eat turkey. Anybody doesn't eat turkey, not that I know of, right? But the idea is you have to have a tradition that Jews ate it. Okay. Now we come to bugs, right? What's worse than biting into an apple and finding a worm? Half a worm. It's not a joke. I had an experience that, cashew nuts, you have to open them up and look inside, because sometimes they have bugs in them, right? I knew that, and I usually did it, but I never found one right all my life, so I figured I wasn't so careful about it, right? One time we didn't catch it, I noticed that half a worm, right? There was like a little, something inside, I took it happens. It happens, right? Anyway, we're not allowed to eat bugs. Prohibition in the Torah. Very severe prohibition, right? Every bug is like 6 prohibitions, right? So you'll tell me there is bacteria and everything. You look at a microscope and say, yes, it's only what's visible to the human eye. If it's not visible to the average, we're talking about probably average sight, not what we can't see, right? Someone who has good eyes, you have to, but it's the average. You don't have to look with a magnifying glass. Only if you see something with your eyes, then you can look with a magnifying glass to see if it moves around or not, right? But you can see something very small. On a dollar bill, you've got Washington, D.C. in small letters and a period, right? The period on the dollar bill, right, is very tiny, right? But it's visible to the human eye. A bug that's the size of the period on the dollar bill, that tiny, right? It's also forbidden, right? So, we have something called a chazaka. Chazaka means if it happens 3 times, then we assume it's going to happen again, right? Ben, you're eating soup, and you find a fly in your soup. What do? You take out the fly, you keep on eating, right? Find a second fly, what do? Take it out and keep on eating. By the 3rd fly, now you're not allowed to keep on eating unless you check for more, right? If it's 1 or 2, you say it might accidentally fall. If it's 3 or more, you have 3, you got to look for more. That's called chazaka, right? So there are certain fruits and vegetables that are known to have bugs, right? Some fruits and vegetables that are generally clean, you don't have to check. Like, you look, before you bite in, take a look. There's a hole on the outside, right? Tomatoes, cucumbers, carrots generally don't have bugs, right? I once found a worm in a carrot. You have to look, right? But there are certain fruits and vegetables that are known to have bugs. They have a chazaka, right? And these you're not allowed to eat without checking. For example, romaine lettuce. Romaine lettuce has little bugs which are transparent, right? They don't come off with rinsing them. They cling to it. Very difficult to get them off, right? When I was a boy, we never ate romaine lettuce except at the Passover Seder because hard to throw on horseradish, right? So we would rinse it off well. Then we would soak it in salt water or in kosher Passover vinegar, right? And then we would take every leaf, put it up to the light, knock off the bugs, right? You can see them. Then second time, we check a second time, we always find the second time as well, right? Today, thanks to modern technology, it's easier. We have gush katif, used to be a gush katif, right? They have these special greenhouses where they grow these vegetables that do not have without these bugs. You have to rinse them off anyway, so regular bugs, but they don't have these bugs, right? This referring to romaine lettuce, to scallions, right? What else is common to have bugs in them, right? Spinach, what's it called? Cauliflower and what's the other one? Broccoli, right? These you can't even check. So you can't even check them, right? Things like there were things like artichoke, right? The artichoke you also can't check. You have to just the hearts, but not the leaves themselves are very problematic, right? They find bugs. It's strawberries. There are little dots in the strawberries. Some of those little dots move around. Right. Corn on the cob could have worms in it also. Right. So there was a prohibition of eating bugs. No chocolate-colored ants. What's called chocolate-covered ants. No, sorry guys. I mean, you would say, who wants to eat bugs anyway, right? But there are places where they do eat bugs. In the Far East, right? I saw someone had a color magazine of people in the Far East eating cockroaches and all kinds of bugs, right? That's what they eat, right? There actually happens to be one insect which is kosher. Anybody know which one? The locust, but we don't know which one. Not all of them. There's a certain species which we lost the tradition. That's why we don't eat. Look, Yemenite Jews stayed in Yemen since the first temple. They have the most traditions, right? And they have a tradition which locust is kosher, so they eat it. If we don't eat it, I don't know, but we don't eat it. All right. Flying insects, bugs, maggots, worms, and fruits. The meat of an animal that was not slaughtered properly, right? Now we have to slaughtering is actually the next section, right? Slaughtering animals, you have to take a knife, which is totally smooth. The slaughterer takes his fingernail, goes over on the rim, to make sure if there's the slightest nick in the knife, it makes the animal non-kosher. If one smooth cut has to cut through the majority of the windpipe and the food pipe. That's the esophagus and the trachea, right? What if it's just exactly half? Is it kosher? No, it has to be a majority, right? What's the difference between a majority and a little bit more? A tiny bit, right? A tiny bit, right? Chametz, right? You add water to the flour. 18 minutes later, it's chametz, right? 17 minutes, 59 seconds is not right? 1 minute, right? When I was teaching children, I would bring this point out graphically. I would write on the board chametz and matzah. Now, what's the difference between chametz and matzah? They both have mem. They cancel each other out. They both have tzaddik, right? Here you have a ches. Here you have a hay. What's the difference between a ches and a hay? They look the same, except there's a window in the hay, right? So I would draw on the board a hay with a space, right? What's that? Hay. Now I would start making the space a little bit smaller. I would make it a little bit higher through the line of the hay. What is it now? Still a hay. A little bit higher. What is it now? Still a hay. A little bit higher. What is it? Still a hay. A little bit higher. Oh, the last dot. That makes it a ches. Now it's chametz. From chametz to matzah, what's the difference? That one little dot. Right. When I learned the laws of slaughtering, right? I never slaughtered, but I went to visit. I have a cousin in Belgium, in Antwerp, that is a slaughterer. So I went to visit him, and I went to see the slaughterhouse in Belgium, right, where they were slaughtering animals, right. And I noticed in the slaughterhouse there was a lamb that was tied to a table, and along comes the guy, obviously not Jewish, takes a little knife, goes over to the lamb, goes, all the things that I learned makes it not kosher. He did, right. So I went to my cousin, hey, son, some non-Jewish slaughter. He said, no, don't be frightened. That's Muslim slaughter, right? Halakha, whatever they call it, right? You see, the Muslims took from us the concept of slaughtering an animal with a knife at the neck, right? But the details of the oral law has to be smooth, has to be one look, and as long as the cut of the neck is good enough, right? Interesting. Right? By the way, that's the most humane method of slaughter because the knife is very sharp. The animal doesn't feel anything. The blood gushes out of its head immediately, and they die immediately, right? They don't have any pain. There's no pain at all, right? The animal moves around. There are reflexes. You know, the cow jumps up and down, but that's reflexes. That's not. He's dead, right? And all the goyim try to tell us, oh, it's not humane. You got to stun the animal first, right? They forbid kosher slaughter in Switzerland. The Swiss are so humane. You know that? During World War II, when Jews tried to escape from the Nazis by going over the Alps to neutral Switzerland, they were caught by the border guards. What do? They send it right back, right? It's not legal, right? We have to keep the law, right? It's so humane, right? Okay. The Nazis were very good. They were dog lovers. You know, the Nazis love dogs, right? Story of a guy who jumped off the train going to the camps, and he's running for his life, and two SS men are running after it, right? And he sees a barn with a vicious dog in front of it. He was afraid of the dog, but he was more afraid of the SS men. So he ran in front of the dog, into the barn, hit himself in the straw, and he hears him coming. Where could he be? Maybe he's in the barn. Well, gee, there's a dog there. Well, you got a gun, shoot the dog. Shoot the dog? Why should I shoot the dog? What did the dog ever do to you? Right? The Jews say, what did I ever do to him? Right? What did I ever do to him? Anti-Semitism, right? The joke, the famous joke in anti-Semitism, right? In Eisa Torah, they have a seminar called Why the Jews, right? Why do we get that name from? The joke is that in Russia, during the time of the Tsar, there was a pogrom. And the guy comes into the store and tells the storekeeper, outside, they're beating up all the Jews and all the bicycle riders. And he said, why the bicycle riders? We say, why the Jews? Okay? Why the bicycle riders? Okay. What's next? Benefit from an ox that was condemned to death. It was an animal that wasn't slaughtered properly. It's not kosher. You have to give it to the dogs, right? Why did the Torah say give it to the dogs, right? Because the dogs didn't bark when we went out of Egypt. Prohibition of eating blood, right? Does anybody really have a desire for a nice cold glass of cow's blood, right? It's not too delectable, right? But there are places where they drink it, right? This is part of idolatry. They used to drink blood. But in any case, this means that after you slaughter the animal, you got to get the blood out. How do you get the blood out, right? So first you got to soak it for an hour to get it very soft, and then you put thick salt, not table salt, thick salt on the whole surface of the animal and the bird. It's not applied to fish. Fish blood is okay. And you got to leave it there for an hour, and it soaks out all the blood. Then you have to rinse it very well. That's called making the animal kosher, getting all the blood out, right? The only exception is the liver. Liver has so much blood in it that the salt doesn't take it out. You got to roast it over the fire. When you roast it over the fire, then you got chopped liver. Chopped liver is fine, right? As long as it's roasted over the fire, right? Has to be salted within 3 days of the slaughter, because after 3 days the blood coagulates and then it doesn't come out, right? And if you can't do it in 3 days, you have to water it down. You have to hose it down, right? You know, they have a slaughterhouse in Denver, and they ship the meat to New York by train, and it takes more than 3 days to get there. So every 3 days, a mashgiach has to come on the train and water down all the blood, so it shouldn't coagulate, right? I remember one year my father was a rabbi, and he found out that it was yontif the third day. They couldn't go on the rabbis couldn't go to water it down. All the train, all the meat wasn't kosher, and they couldn't use it. All right. And the blood is forbidden, says the Torah, because that's the soul of the animal. You're allowed to eat the meat of the animal, but not the soul of the animal. It will make you animal-like. Eating blood makes you animal-like. And the Torah says, don't eat it. You have reward. It's a long left, right? And the rabbis say blood, which no one has a desire to eat. The Torah says, what reward you get for that? Certainly things that you do have a desire to eat. Cheeseburger, right? Certainly not. Right? Then we have certain fats. There were fats that were used as sacrifices in the temple, and these fats we have to remove before eating the meat, right? This is called tribering in Yiddish. In Hebrew it's called nikur. I heard that in Israel there are certain cuts, hind cuts of animals, which you can get here, you can't get in America. The reason for that is because there's so many fats in the hind cut that in America they don't bother cutting it out. They just cut the whole thing out and put it on the non-kosher market, right? In Israel, there's not such a big non-kosher market. They actually take the trouble to take the fats out and they can add it, right? Then we have the gid hanasheh, sciatic nerve, right? This is the muscle that holds up the leg, right? And the reason why we don't need the sciatic nerve is because there was a wrestling match between Jacob and the angel, right? And the angel pulled Jacob's sciatic nerve, right? Ben, you ever fight with an angel? All the time. You know what his name is? Yetzer Hara, the evil inclination, right? We fight with him all the time, right? So here we have Jacob fighting with an angel. Now we know Jacob was very strong, right? He took the boulder that was on the well that took a whole flock of people to take it off, and he took it off with one finger, right? So he's fighting with this guy. The guy's obviously not a human being, right? The guy's obviously an angel, right? So who should have won? Who's stronger, an angel or a person? Angel, right? So how come the answer is the angel had a handicap. He could not use more force than Jacob could resist. And that's the analogy. And he's trying all night long to get him to move, to budge, and he couldn't get him to budge, right? Then he pulls the sciatic nerve. That's the nerve that holds up the muscle of the leg, right? Says the Chofetz Chaim. What's the analogy over here? Jacob wants to study Torah. And the Yetzer Hara comes into the synagogue and says to the base medrash guys, close your Gemaras and go to Ben Yehuda, right? And they don't listen. We're learning Torah, get out of here, Yetzer Hara. He doesn't succeed, right? Jacob, he's trying to budge him and he can't budge him. But then he goes to the people who give money to support Torah. Don't give your money to Or Sameach, Rosh Hashanah. Give your money to the Ketzabah, whatever it is, right? And there he succeeds. The Gid Hanash is the support. There he succeeds, right? And we're fighting with the Yetzer Hara constantly, but he can't use more force than you can resist. You can't say, the Satan made me do it, because the Yetzer Hara is limited. He cannot use it anyway. If God gives you this test, that means you have the ability to overcome it. It may not be easy, right? We have one exception in the Torah, where Yafas Torah, a man's in the middle of battle, he's a beautiful woman, and he won't be able to control himself. So therefore the Torah permits him. That's the only exception. Right? So the Chofetz Chaim wanted to get up to go to davening in the morning, And the Yitzhak says, Yisrael Meir, you're an old man. It's cold outside. Stay in bed. You can have the shtibelach later on. Yitzhak, you're older than me. You've been around since the beginning of the world, right? And you're up on time, right on the job. Tell me to stay in bed. I'm going to learn from you, and I'm going to go get up and do my job and go down, right? And the yeshiva boy gets up at 9 o'clock. And they say, why did you come so late, Rabbi? I was up at 7. I want to go to daven. And the Yitzhak says, stay in bed. And I fought with him. At 9 o'clock, I finally won. I was so tired, I went back to sleep. Okay. So to remember that story of Yaakov, we don't eat the tzaddik nerve. We have to cut that out of the animal. Even though it's interesting, the Talmud says it's not edible anyway. You can eat it anyway. It's very hard. Right. But we have to cut it out. To remember the story of Yaakov. The story says we don't eat that part of the animal. Now we come to milk and meat. In 3 places the Torah says, do not cook a kid in its mother's milk. Right? And the oral law says that means meat and milk. 3 prohibitions. 1 prohibition is cooking it together. If you cook meat and milk together, even if you don't eat it, say you're a chef in a non-kosher restaurant, you don't eat there, right? You keep your own, you take your own sandwich with you, right? You don't eat there, right? But you cook a cheeseburger, you cook the meat and milk together, you break a prohibition of the Torah. The second prohibition is eating meat and milk that was cooked together, right? So Torah law, only if it was cooked together is forbidden to eat it. And the third prohibition is deriving benefits. Say you accidentally cooked meat and milk together worth $100, you may not sell it to a non-Jew. You can give it away, someone you don't know, so not give it to your best friend, who'll do you a favor in advance, not give it to your animals. You cannot have any benefit from meat and milk that was cooked together, right? But why do they say don't cook a kid in its mother's milk? You say, oh, meat and milk, why is only a kid in its mother's milk, right? So one answer is, what is the life source of the kid? The kid is a baby goat. It's mother's milk, right? So we think maybe a kid in his mother's milk per minute. Even a kid in his mother's milk you're not allowed to have. Certainly any other meat and milk, right? Another thing is, this law only applies to kosher meat. But if you cook pig's meat and milk and you eat it, you break the rules of pig's meat, but not meat and milk. Second of all, it only applies to kosher milk. What if I cook meat with regular meat with pig's milk and I eat it? I break it with pig's milk, but not with meat and milk. And third of all, from Torah law, it only applies to animals and not birds. Now, how can the Torah tell me this in the most concise way? The Torah is very stingy on words. Gives an analogy. Do not cook a kid, that's kosher meat, and his mother's milk, that's kosher milk, and it's an animal, not a bird. But the rabbis make a defense over here. They said, if you eat meat and milk that was not cooked together, you come to eat meat and milk that was cooked together, right? Very easily. And if you eat bird's milk that was cooked with meat, birds with meat, you can come to eat animal. You know, they have chicken burgers, right? And chicken franks that are very similar to hamburgers. They taste very similar. If it's made of soya, you can tell the difference. If it's fish, you can tell the difference, right? But if it's birds, very similar. So the rabbis prohibit eating bird's meat with milk as well, right? And even if it wasn't cooked together, right? And the halacha is that after eating a meal, a meat meal, you have to wait a period of time. The general custom is 6 hours, right? There's some places that custom less, but it's generally 6 hours between a meat meal. It means if you have any meat stuck between your teeth after 6 hours, then it's negated. Then you can eat it, right? Okay, then we have the laws of Israel, new grain. This is only applies in Israel, right? Can't eat fruits for 3 years, right? Untied, anywhere in the world, fresh fruits and vegetables are all kosher except for the fact of bugs. But in Israel, it has to have a tithe, it has to have a hechsher, because any produce that grows in Israel has to be tithed, right? Today it's only rabbinical. And we have the sabbatical year, right? There's a mitzvah to cover the blood of an animal, a wild animal or a bird, right? After you slaughter a bird, a chicken, or a wild animal, we don't, that's too common, right? You cover the blood, a special mitzvah, because the wild animals were the ones who buried Cain, and therefore we have a special mitzvah for them, right? Then we have, the last thing mentioned in the Rambam is, this book is the mother bird, right? You go out in the field and you see a mother bird hovering over its chicks or its eggs. And you want to take the chicks. If you want to take the mother, no problem, you can take the mother, right? But you want to take the chicks, right? You may not take the chicks or the birds in front of the mother, because the mother has maternal feelings. She's doing the most noblest profession, being a mother, right? And you cannot cause pain to animals, unnecessarily, right? You're allowed to slaughter animals, but you can't cause pain to them unnecessarily, right? So the Torah says you must shoo away the mother bird, and then you can take the chicks of the bird, right? And the Torah says that you get to live a long life, The Torah doesn't tell us the reward for mitzvahs anywhere else. Everywhere the Torah tells us the punishment for sins, his death penalty, soul cut off, lashes, right? But for a mitzvah, we're all the same. We don't know except in 2 places. What's the most difficult mitzvah in the Torah? Can be the most difficult, right? Honor your parents, right? And there it says you live a long life. And what's the easiest one? You happen to be in the field. It's not talking about domestic birds. And you see a bird, you want to take the chicks, you shoo away the mother, it doesn't cost any money, easy, right? And they both have the same reward, live a long life. Now, it doesn't necessarily mean a long life in this world. The Talmud says a hypothetical case. A man was in the field with his father, and he saw a nest with birds, and then the father asked his son to bring him some chickens, so the chicks. And he went up on his ladder, and he shooed away the mother bird, and he took the chicks. He fulfilled both missions that the Torah says live a long life, and he fell off the ladder and he died. Right. Now, did it really happen? I don't know, but could it happen? Will that disprove the Torah? It doesn't necessarily mean a long life in this world. It can mean a long life in the world to come for us. I don't know what a short life in the world to come. Right. Now, there is no mitzvah to look for these birds. People look for these birds. It's only if you want to eat the chicks, you have to shoo away the mother, right? That's simple, right? But there is a segula that, it says, shoo away the mother and the chicks take you. People who don't have children, it's a segula. If you fill this mitzvah, they have children, right? I know many people that it happens to me. Sometimes these doves go into on your porch and they make a nest over there, right? Shoo away the mother. We get the children, right? But I don't know why you should do it just to cause pain for the mother, right? You're going to take the chicks. The Zohar says the simple meaning is the mother forgets. Once it flies away, it forgets. It starts a new nest, right? The Mishnah says in Brachas, someone who says until the bird's nest, your mercy extends till the bird's nest. We tell him to be quiet. That's not a proper prayer because it sounds as if God has mercy on the birds. If God had mercy on the birds, He'd say, "Don't slaughter the birds." Right? We're allowed to slaughter birds, right? God wants to teach us the lesson of having mercy. That's the idea. Not because God has mercy on the birds, right? And for that you live a long life, right? So you have to shoo away the mother. The Zohar, I just want to end with the Zohar. The Zohar says that the mother bird does come back and sees that her chicks are missing and starts crying, wah. And that opens up the gate of mercy in heaven, and God has mercy on the world. Interesting, right? So we finished the book of holiness, and tomorrow we begin book 6, which is the book of pledging, of expression. Any questions? Comments, arguments? Thank you very much.